Record. Okay, so Karina joined VNRC, the Vermont Natural Resources Council, in April of 2020. And as a restoration ecologist, she is responsible for running VNRC's dam removal program and contributing her scientific knowledge and expertise to policy issues around the conservation and restoration of Vermont's waters. And most recently, she was a senior ecologist at Trudell Consulting Engineers in Williston, overseeing natural resource related projects and providing testimony for Act 250 and Act 248 land use permitting projects. Formerly, she was a project manager for the Winooski Natural Resources Conservation District and a restoration ecologist for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and Intervale Nursery. Before moving to Vermont, she taught environmental science and worked in conservation in the greater Yellowstone area in Wyoming. Karina holds a master's in environmental science from Antioch University in New England and a BA in environmental studies and sociology from St. Lawrence. She's a certified wetland scientist and a wildlife biologist. She lives with her family in Jericho and enjoys every opportunity for outdoor exploration. So thank you, Karina, so much for joining us tonight. Feel free to take it away.
Thank you, Kate. And thank you guys for making the time for this. I appreciate it. I will pull up my PowerPoint here. Can you guys see, are you seeing the display mode or the
We're seeing the regular slideshow.
Okay, perfect. For some reason when I have two screens on, so oh, hold on one sec. Try that again. Okay. So yes, thank you for the introduction, Kate. I'm a restoration ecologist with the Vermont Natural Resources Council, and I basically my goal tonight is really to have a conversation with you and answer questions, but I figured it might help to just go through. I have a short slide deck of 15 minutes worth of slides, and then I figured we could just open it up to a conversation for the last half, if that makes sense. So I'll go through these slides maybe fairly swiftly, and then we can open it up for questions after I've gone through them, if that makes sense to others.
Wow.
So yes, I work at VNRC, and I would say I split my time probably 70% working on the ground, removing dams and reconnecting rivers, and the other 30%, although I feel like this year it might be more than that, working on policy related to river corridors, floodplain protection, wetlands, and dam removal. And with that, I will see if I can move my slide forward here. Whoops. Why is it doing that? Sorry about that. Let's try to advance. Okay, so the Vermont Dam Removal Initiative is something that the Vermont Dam Task Force, which is something I chair, is a group of community-minded citizens, scientists, regulators who all meet across the statewide to support dam removal projects and prioritize projects. And the goal of that initiative is to raise awareness on the impacts of dams. And when I speak of dams, I'm speaking of man-made barriers, not beaver dams. We love beaver dams, but I'm speaking of dams that block the natural function of a river system, and those are man-made. And I'm speaking I review hydropower dams as well as derelict dams, but the Vermont Dam Task Force and the Vermont Dam Removal Initiative is looking at derelict dams. So those dams that were built in a different time period to serve a different purpose and no longer are serving that purpose. So we raise awareness on the impact of dams on river health. We identify dams that are priorities for removal, and we try and prioritize those dams for removal. And we collaborate because we find that this work is much more successful when there are multiple interested parties. And this is a slide of what's called the river continuum. It's sort of some basic dam removal science, but what it shows is so the upper graphic shows a free-flowing river, and a free-flowing river transports sediment naturally. It transports nutrients, it transports wildlife, aquatic organisms move up and down that system, so they're free to flow. In that system, you have naturally more dissolved oxygen, you have more turbidity, and you have in Vermont, you have cold water fish species. So Vermont is known for their cold water streams, their brook trout streams, and that is what improves the health of the downstream system. So Lake Champlain being an example. So that cold oxygenated water can actually prevent algae blooms on Lake Champlain. When you put a dam in that system, you block that system. So all of that sediment, nutrients, and water that could move naturally downstream can no longer do that. So it builds up behind that dam. And if that dam is not managed regularly, so our flood control dams, of which represent 2% of Vermont, 2% of the Vermont dams are flood control dams. So not very many. There's 8 of them in Vermont. I think 3 in the Winooski watershed. Those dams are managed for flood control. So they are excavated, they excavate behind them regularly so all that sediment that builds up that normally would go downstream, they clear that out so that they have storage for flood control. They were built to protect our towns that were built. We inherited our development pattern from our ancestors. So we built our towns along the rivers, and that was the form of power at the time. So we need to protect that infrastructure and fully support protecting that infrastructure. Therefore, we have built some dams to protect that infrastructure. Those are our flood control dams. The other dams that no longer serve a purpose, they were built as mill dams or ice ponds, or maybe a mill dam, ice pond, and then recreational pond. Those dams are not managed regularly. So those are what we are calling derelict dams. And when you have a dam in a system, you naturally can increase water temperature behind that dam. If it's holding back water, it's slowing the flow, it's reducing the dissolved oxygen, and it's changing the habitat. So you're creating a lake-like system versus a river system. When you have a lake, you have a different ecosystem. So you have warm water fish species, you have bass and sunfish, and you have less presence of brook trout and minnows and some of the cold water fish species. So it's really just a different ecosystem. And when a river system, the natural flow of a river system is really dependent on flow. So flow is habitat, and that creates life. So very different system, and there are liabilities. So, basically landowners are held liable if their dam is to break, and they cost a lot of money to maintain. And in Vermont, unfortunately, our dams are aging out. Like, there are a lot of really old dams, and they have been impacted in the recent flooding events. So we prioritize our dams based on ecological impact, hazard potential classification, owner interest. We can't remove a dam unless we have a willing landowner. So we can have a project that's highest priority from an ecological standpoint, but if we don't have a willing landowner, that's a no-go. And then partner support, because we definitely take advantage of leveraging partners whenever we can. And the more partners we have at the table, we feel we have much stronger projects. So there is a lot of federal and state funding for dam removals. Sorry, I'm just letting my dog out. But that funding is best utilized when we can leverage it with other funding. So for example, US Fish and Wildlife doesn't want necessarily to support a project unless Vermont Fish and Wildlife wants to support that project. We sort of have 3 buckets of funding related to dam removals. They can fall in the habitat aquatic organism bucket, they can fall in the clean water fund bucket, or they can fall in the flood resilience bucket. Or an ideal project checks all those boxes and really falls in all 3 of those buckets. This is a picture of a dam in the city of Rutland that we removed in 2021, Dunkley Pond Dam. This dam had a series of affordable housing. It's right on Route 7. Tenny Brook flows through it. It's a brook trout stream, upstream and downstream. And the houses that were adjacent to this dam, the folks had to be evacuated 8 times between 2011 and 2019 related to flooding for this dam. So in 2019, after the Halloween storm, there was a storm, and they actually had to perform an emergency breach on this dam after they had evacuated the residences. So we, in 2021, fully removed the dam, reconnected the floodplain, did some channel work, in-stream restoration work, and wetlands work. And the fire department, the city of Rutland, the mayor, and the local residents of those houses have been very grateful. This is a sign. If you drive on Route 7, you'll see this sign on the sidewalk looking up at where the dam was, but it basically just tells the history of the dam. This was a requirement by historic preservation, but it also acknowledges that before the dam, there was a free-flowing river there for 10,000 years. And then there was a dam for a couple hundred years, and now there's a free-flowing river there again. So thinking about the history beyond just industrial civilization and European colonization to what came before. And this is the Pelletier Dam. This is another dam that we removed in 2022. So far, I've removed a dam every year that I've worked for VNRC, and we have a lot more to do. But this is a dam that was owned by US Fish and Wildlife Service. It was purchased by US Fish and Wildlife Service. Historically, it was a marble mill, and then it was an ice pond. And then it was purchased by Vermont Fish and Wildlife Service to be a recreational fishing pond. It never actually was utilized for that purpose. It filled in with sediment. It was a large wetland beaver complex. And they recognized that this brook trout stream was really an amazing brook trout stream downstream and way upstream. So the benefits as a cold water fishery were more important than the warm water fishery of what was existing. So we removed that dam with Vermont Fish and Wildlife and have improved the access and opened up 37 miles of brook trout stream for both brook trout and brown trout. There's wild brown trout in there as well. So you can see on this picture shows to the left the dam. It was a marble dam, so it's actually a very pretty dam. And then to the right, the dam was in this picture and is no longer there. So basically same picture. And this is right after restoration, so we don't have as much vegetation in the picture as we do today. This is the dam that I removed this past year in Shrewsbury, Vermont, Connolly Pond Dam. This was a different style dam. This is a NRCS dam, big earthen dam. It was 300 feet long and 16 feet wide, and it was built for fire suppression and crop irrigation, and was abandoned, no longer being utilized or maintained for that purpose. It was failing in 2021. And there's a state highway below and a house, a couple of houses. So it basically was a high hazard dam, and it was failing, and so there was an imminent risk to public safety. So we completed an emergency drawdown of this dam, and this picture was taken actually with the dam still intact. The dam is forested because they let trees grow up on the earthen dam. The dam is in the lower right-hand corner, right-hand angle of the dam. But after the drawdown, you can just, what I love about this picture is that you can see the stream where it wants to flow now with still a dam blocking the channel, but you have a culvert draining it. And then you can see the wetlands coming in and the seeps. So all of these wetlands were inundated. They were fully underwater. So those wetlands weren't actually doing the function that they do best because they were inundated. So these emergent wetlands, these spring seeps, this groundwater is now flowing into this tributary. We have removed the dam. We didn't really mess with the channel. The channel will find its own way. It's a high headwater stream. But the wetlands have really bounced back, and they bounced back right after the drawdown, which was amazing. And I will just say a lot of the projects that I have been working on are in watersheds where there aren't local watershed organizations. So I work a lot with other watershed organizations and provide technical support and help them with projects. But I tend to take on the projects where there aren't other folks to take those projects on. So Otter Creek watershed has been a watershed that I've worked in a lot for that reason. This is Cross Brothers Dam in Northfield. This is a dam that is still on track for removal, and we're hoping to hear from FEMA very soon. But it's been 4 years in the making just to get funding for this dam. The town's been in full support. They own the dam. It's behind Dollar General. We have the preliminary engineering study shows that removing this dam will lower the flood elevation for 10 homes, the 100-year flood elevation for 10 homes by 2 feet. So that's really substantial for the town of Northfield. And we hope to be awarded this project soon. It's an expensive one because it's a really big dam. And this is just a rendering of that same dam showing an image of the dam and then without the dam. So sometimes we do this for communities to help visualize what it would look like without the dam. And I wanted to share that photo. How are we doing on time, Kate? It's getting, we have like, is it about 10 minutes or less?
Yeah, something like 10 minutes.
Okay. I think I have like 2 more slides. I'll whip through them. This is Rouleau Pond Dam in Williamstown. This is a dam that was built in the 50s as a camp by some granite, by a granite company. They owned the camp and they wanted a pond in back of their camp. And so they built it out of granite blocks. It failed during the July flood event and actually caused a tremendous amount of damage to the town of Williamstown downstream. So an emergency order was issued by Vermont Dam Safety to cause the landowner to breach this dam, so lower the elevation of the dam by 4 feet for safety. The dam owner didn't have funds to do that work. They did hire an engineer to come up with a design for that work, and they were willing, the state dam safety division was willing to pay for that lowering of the dam on the condition that they would remove the dam. So this is an example of a landowner that can't afford, doesn't have the resources to maintain their dam, and they're in a situation where their dam has been impacted based on the flooding and needs to respond based on the dam order. And this is a picture of Baldwin Pond Dam and my site visit out there a couple months ago. And so just bringing us full circle, this is a significant hazard dam that's been classified by dam safety. So the hazard levels are high, significant, medium, or low, and moderate, I believe. And significant hazard is the second highest rating, which means not loss of life if this dam were to fail, but loss to public and private infrastructure. And My last slide, or second to last slide, is the dam removal and outcomes. So we have reconnected rivers and species diversity. We have it improves community and climate resilience, public safety and liability. It improves water quality, recreational opportunities. This dam removal can definitely educate people and provide outreach and understanding of river science. And we support watershed organizations and love to do this work. And this is just a graphic by Tim Newcomb, our local, which I love. So with that, I'll stop sharing and we can have a conversation. Does anyone have questions?
Yeah, I feel pretty ignorant about this. I'm just wondering what it's like if the dam fails. What does that mean? I mean, yeah, can you describe it?
Yeah, so I'm not an engineer and I don't think that there have been recent studies done on what it would mean if this dam failed. It does have a significant hazard rating. It's had that hazard rating, from what I can tell, at least as far back as 2015. But by having that rating, it means that there is public infrastructure and private infrastructure downstream that could be destroyed.
So does it mean that when you say there's a breach in the dam, does that mean there's like the flooding above puts so much pressure on the dam that it creates a break in it? And
yes, that's one way. What was observed when I was visiting Baldwin Pond Dam is there's erosion behind the dam. So basically the concrete is failing. So there's spalts in the concrete. So it's old concrete and it's causing erosion. So either from overtopping or just from undermining or going right through the concrete, and it's causing holes on the other side of the concrete.
I see. So there could be an immense amount of water all at once that comes through and floods out everything below.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And I'll just add that the landowner has given us support to move forward with a feasibility study for this project. A feasibility study is basically identifies like what just helps us flush out some of the questions that you ask, like what would it look like if this dam were to fail? What are the benefits, directly for floodplain reconnection, wetlands restoration, water quality? We don't have that funding currently, but I have applied through a Watersheds United block grant, enhancement grant, for that funding to conduct that first piece. But these projects can take, up to 3 years to come up with funding and move forward. That being said, this dam could go in the next storm event.
Excuse me, can I say something?
Yes.
Hello, I'm Ted Barrett. I live right across from Baldwin Pond. I've lived here for 45 years. That pond, to me, I'm totally opposed to this whole thing, but it may be too late. I just lately heard about it. That dam has breached a couple of times in the 45 years I've been here, and it's done a little damage to the property right next to it, and that's about all it's going to do. It's a very small outlet to that dam. It's a small dam. I don't see the danger at all. And if we take we lose this pond, it really affects a lot of things that I don't think you people have considered. There's beavers here. There's a beaver dam. There's beavers here all the time. There's wildlife galore. Geese nest here every year. There's 3 families of geese nest here every year. I can just go on and on. This is to me that this should not be removed. I don't think this is a danger at all, and this dam could be fixed up very easily. I think we should look at that, fix the dam.
Karina, is there, as part of your analysis for the grant that you've applied for, does that include any analysis of the options for fixing?
It does. It includes an alternatives analysis for fixing as well. So just it compares. It does a cost comparison. That being said, what I don't have funds, nor am I aware of funds for supporting dam repair. So there are a lot of funds available for removal, but there aren't for repair. So that makes it very difficult for communities to repair dams.
Yeah, and
Well-
I'm just gonna chime in here. You know, just the engineered plan alone, this doesn't include any of the work to, support that plan. I was told would cost me between $7,000 and $15,000. And then the work itself could be upwards to, $100,000. So it's, on the severe level. And for me, I obviously want the pond there, but I don't, I might as well just go burn money. I'm never getting that back.
Well, who says we have to do it the way the state recommends?
Well,
me,
the liability is all on me though, Ted. So if
Oh.
anything happens downstream and the community 116 washes out, or one of the houses, their private property washes out, that's going to be, I'm going to have to pay for it, not you.
Dan and I have been talking about this at length, and one of the options was that he would actually sell the pond to me, or sell the dam to me, and that's something I'm considering. Because I don't want this pond to go. I think this is a really nice natural resource. And I think we'd be doing this town a big disservice by taking this out. This town really enjoys this pond. So that's my 2 cents. And I want to, I'm not stopping here though, because I am really going to push this.
I appreciate your comments, Ted, and I think they're really important. I think, I would look at Curtis Pond is another pond in Calais that the community's gone through a similar situation. So I would encourage you to reach out to some of the folks related to that pond if you want to educate, learn more about how they've moved forward.
Did they repair it or did they get rid of it?
They haven't repaired it yet, but they set up a bond to repair it.
Well, once you get the bureaucracy of the state involved, I was going to get this dam repaired, and I would have had it done, except for my neighbor who owned it, Dan's predecessor, wouldn't okay it. We were going to repair that dam totally for $5,000. I don't think we do that with the state involved, but for sure. But I'm saying though, it's not really that big a dam.
I see a question in the chat. Won't the beavers just dam it up if you remove the dam? And that could be true. I've worked in a lot of dam removals where there are beavers in the watershed, and it's amazing to see how fast they work.
Oh, they are amazing creatures.
That being said, so go ahead, Dan.
The thing for me is that, there's obviously very smart people working with this stuff on a day-to-day basis, have way more knowledge. And the fact that they deem it, high risk or whatever you said, like, almost the top tier. Like, I didn't know that until today. And that definitely makes me nervous as the dam owner. Like, I can't, I got enough going on. I can't, deal with any sort of liability with that on that front.
I have a question. If you remove the dam and the beavers come in and build a dam, is the landowner still liable?
Yes.
Is that true, Karina? Or Dan?
I don't I don't know if I can answer that. I don't think so, because it wouldn't be a dam that falls under dam safety's jurisdiction once it
Oh,
becomes a beaver
okay.
dam. So
Okay.
right now, the significant hazard dam is a dam that falls under their jurisdiction.
So beaver dams don't, but I mean, if a beaver dam is impacting, town infrastructure or a private landowner, they do have the right to take out the beavers.
Correct.
Yeah. But they also have the right to take out the dam.
That
it's
I would be
beaver
good
dam.
at.
What?
Hey, Ted and Daniel, I'm wondering, is this dam where the town gets their water?
No,
No,
Oh, okay, okay.
it just dumps into Lewis Creek.
It looks
Okay.
like, maybe Stephen has a question.
Oh, yeah, right, I was gonna ask, a nice talk, Karina, it's interesting. But did you say that none of the dams that you were looking at are hydro dams?
I said that the Vermont Dam Task Force is prioritizing derelict dams for removal. I provide comments related to relicensing and decommissioning of hydropower dams, so that's something I do separately from the Vermont Dam Task Force. And yeah, happy to go into that in more detail, but there's a lot related to hydropower.
Are hydroelectric dams being removed, or have they been?
In Vermont, no active hydroelectric dams are being removed, but yes, all over the world, hydroelectric dams are being removed.
Okay, thanks.
what is the timeline if we were, I heard you say you only have done one a year. Is that, if we determine, and I know we're not determining, but is it a long ways? Because I just got whacked with over $1,000 and, coincidentally, annual dam fees that were never sent to my house this past week, which I'm like, dude, does this take a while?
Yeah, I mean, this is unfortunately the result of the flooding. This in 2023, we've had a lot of dam owners who've had impact, and we can't move projects fast enough, and we have to prioritize them for many reasons. I hope that FEMA will Vermont Emergency Management will get renewed funding, because they definitely support dam removals, and it's a lot cheaper sometimes to spend $500,000 on one dam removal versus $2 million on 2 floodplain buyouts.
Right.
So I think there's potentially more funding coming for this, but it's not here yet, and we can't act fast enough. So yes, 3 years is the fastest we've ever moved a dam in Vermont at this point in time.
Oh my God. Okay. So where does the liability stand at this point? Like, if that thing were to give out tomorrow, like, should I get an excavator up there? I'm just kidding.
Dan, they really have got you scared when there's no reason to. That dam could cave right in, and it has, and it will not. It'll damage your lawn. That's what it'll do, but nothing else. That stream will handle it. It's happened before. So
I'm just used to the worst, Ted. I'm just used to the worst thing happening to me. So
well, I guess you are, but man, I tell you, the odds are very, very low.
Yeah. Anyway.
And I know there is the significant hazard rating of this dam is testament for the public safety threat, but I also think there's a substantial ecological benefit. And I know that's hard, because I understand the value of the community resource of the pond and the connection to the pond. I do think it's an exercise to think about what was there before the pond, what it looked like. I think there would still be a large, slow, free-flowing river there. There's multiple tributaries that flow in at that point, and the topography is flat. So I don't think you would lose your pond entirely. And that's what the feasibility study can show is what that would look like. But there is a substantial temperature, impact of this dam currently on Lewis Creek. So I do think it's important to think about the water quality benefits of.
Well, I can add a little bit to that. Come over next spring and you can help me catch some brookies in there. There's some beautiful brookies in there every year. So they're not being too damaged. That water's pretty cold.
That's great to
Ted,
hear.
Ted, I'm coming over because I've never caught one.
Well, you don't know what to use.
All right, it's a date. We're going.
So do we have any last questions for Karina before I try to cut this off so we can,
Could I?
yeah.
I-
go ahead.
Yeah, I'm wondering about the sediment that's in behind these dams. Do you have to test it for phosphorus or toxins, and what happens to it? Do you remove it or does it just flush downstream?
Good question. We do test it. Based on this watershed and what's upstream, I would think that it's fairly clean. So depending on how that comes out, we have to design how we handle it differently. But yes, it's a balance, I would say. The more typically, historically in Vermont, we have removed the sediment buildup behind the dam, and basically you can find the historic stream channel underneath. So by doing these borings, you can identify where the channel was historically, remove the sediment, and that sediment can be used in the town for road base or different projects. But that is expensive to excavate all that sediment and truck it to a location and store it for future use if it's clean. The best scenario, and what is more common and is happening more in the West, is letting some of that sediment move downstream. In this case, that might be hard with the steep topography and Starksboro being right below. But the reach below that dam is sediment starved. It hasn't received sediment. And, the soils are impacted as a result. The habitat is impacted. So there's a balance there, and it depends on the design. And that's something we would work with the group of people involved with this project to figure out.
Well, thank you for your presentation.
Yes, thank you. I'll happy to, you are welcome to email me. I think Kate has my contact. If you have more questions, happy to have further conversations, and I'll let you guys get on with your meeting.
All right, thank you, Karina.
Thank you.
And I'll share
Thanks.
the recording of this presentation too, so that can be shared with friends, neighbors, whatever.
Thank you,
Sounds good.
Karina.
Thank you for
Bye.
joining us.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm getting
Bye.
off too. Bye now.
Okay,
Bye.
bye. Okay, I'm gonna stop recording.
Exactly. It's such a polarizing issue.